Hey everybody, this is Theokinawakid'S here, and today it's my Autism Awareness Month and Day special. So, for those who don't know me that very well, which is probably a lot of you, I'm actually slightly autistic myself, more specifically Asperger's. And today, I'm gonna talk to you about. Well, this is kind of a interesting thing because this is my first Autism Day month special. So, with that being said, I'm gonna talk to you about a personal thing about me that basically, a lot of people don't know is that I'm autistic. Shocker, I know. So, with that being said, in celebration of Autism Month and Day, which Autism Day is April 2nd, Autism Month is the month of April. So, with that being said, in celebration of today and this month, I'm gonna talk to you about more specifically autistic characters. More specifically, fictional autistic characters that are both highly relatable and or highly inspiring to any kind of autistic person or kid, that have been struggling with this sort of thing. I mean, I had my own struggles to deal with, so these characters help me basically deal with all this whole thing when it comes to autism. So I'm gonna list off a few examples of various autistic characters that I personally love, and I just want to see how you guys feel about them. So from what I know, like for example, here's my first autistic character that I more or less was aware of. I can't talk today, and more or less looked up to was oddly enough Black Manta from DC Comics. I know he's a villain and a murderous villain at that, and it's like, hey, Okinawa kid, how come you look up to a villain? Well, for one thing, he was one of the first characters in comics that basically is completely relatable to me specifically because he was also back when I was growing up, I was just a confused and angry black autistic kid who didn't fit in anywhere. So, and basically, Black Manta fits the bill, seeing how he's also a angry and confused black character who's also autistic. I mean, he's kind of a worst case scenario, but but yeah, he's one of the first characters who I was aware of that was autistic, and one of the coolest characters in general in terms of DC Comics villains. And I love Black Manta's whole thing of being like this modern day sort of costume pirate of the seas and the arch enemy of Aquaman. The guy is a badass. He's a martial arts badass. He's a tactical genius. He's also the father of the current Aqualad Calderon, aka Jackson Hyde. From the DC Comics and Young Justice. So he is definitely one of the most top tier DC villains. And he's also one of the, well, I mean, if you're aware of it or not, he's also one of the most prominent autistic characters in media. So, for better or for worse, villain or not, he's actually one of the most coolest autistic characters that show that just because you have a mental disability doesn't mean that you're lesser than anyone else. You could be achieving great things or you could achieve worse things, all up to you. Everything is all up to you, and more or less, anybody can achieve greatness or great good or great evil. It all depends on your own path in life. It doesn't. Autism is very much a can be a hindrance or can be a blessing. It's just how you deal with that. Deal with being autistic is depends on what you manage to do or choices you make in life. So, I managed for myself. Even though I have my own struggles with autism, and autism, for those who don't know, is basically a psychological and neural disorder that basically disallows and basically hinders people's social and communication skills, and basically more or less a lot of it is more or less like people a lot more and a lot more technical, a lot more serious minded. Like basic signs of autism include like always sticking to a routine. So everything's in some sort of order, having trouble communicating with others, not direct eye contact, uh, very rigid sort of way of thinking, very uh, basically another thing is that it also affects speech and also communication verbally. Sometimes, and more often than not, in some more severe cases, even muteness, more or less. But with that being said, there's also other things to look out for when it comes to autistic characters and also autistic people in general, is that basically we're either overly sensitive or undersensitive to a lot of different things. So, and not to mention the fact that we, as autistic people, more or less have more of a you're heard of savant syndrome, so we have more focus expertise on a lot of things. Like, for example, I'm huge when it comes to, like, I'm also pretty great with history and geography, so those are my niches, my own savantness, if you will. So I'm great at geography, great history. I could recall any kind of obscure fact about Black history, Native American history, Far East history that you could think of, and I could probably, point you to the right direction of how accurate that is. And also geography, I could literally name almost every capital of the United States by name, by memory, and also every state and also almost every country. So with that being said, those are my things that I'm specialized in. I also have other interests too, but that's besides the point. But the whole gist of it is there are signs to look out for when it comes to autistic characters and autistic people in general. That doesn't mean that we're any different from anyone else. We're just as capable of being functional people, of being as functional in society as anyone else. So basically, don't treat others differently because they have this sort of disorder. We're just as we as autistic people have more or less we're just the same as everyone else. We just our brains kind of work differently. We're just wired differently. So that doesn't give you an excuse to like make fun of them or anything like that. No, no. But here's the thing. Um, as an autistic person, I just want to spread awareness to everyone out there that basically, um, yeah, you've probably seen autistic characters on TV. So yeah, and not to mention the whole thing with autism characters is that like a lot of people, especially like anti-vaxxers, kind of want to avoid having autistic kids because or avoid risking like vaccinations because my son's gonna be autistic forever. No, it's like what the fuck. Honestly, I cannot stand the whole anti-vaccine notion that one, it ain't true. It's disproven time and time again that vaccinations does not lead to autism. Secondly, if you still think that way, you're kind of wrong on a fundamental level. And three, most importantly, just because your son or daughter is autistic does not mean it's the end of the freaking world. There's ways to cope with this. It's not like, oh my god, he's gonna be a social outcast. Like, no, no. Autistic people can be just as capable as anyone else. Basically, just need the time and understanding and care and love that as it is with any other normal child. Just take the time to know what to look for when it comes to autism, and basically, just basically treat them like anyone else. Essentially, like my parents always treat me with kindness and respect and like patience and stuff when it comes to me with my autism. So, there's no as long as you treat people nicely, do unto others what they do unto you, more or less, the golden rule. So, with that being said, um, but yeah, basically, I know I kind of weird that I kind of word that weird, but yeah, that's kind of like basically point. Long story short, the point is autistic characters are also very awesome, and basically, as well as autism people in general, are also very awesome, and basically, and basically, just because they act or act a certain way or think a certain way does not mean that they're any lesser than anyone else. Everybody's have their own problems to deal with. Everybody has their own issues to deal with. Uh, it's only through kindness and understanding that people can actually help each other out and more or less become more basically. Uh, yeah, so I pretty much think basically you probably get the gist, right? So in any case, getting back to like listing off some characters, so yeah, that's Black Manta. So one other one. Oh yeah, I'm gonna list off 4 characters. So next is Entrapta. Entrapta is a very good and accurate depiction of an autistic character in a fictionalized setting, especially in the fantasy. I like Entrapta's whole character. Yeah, she's very analytical. She's very rigid in her ways. She's very hyper focused on science and technology. And yes, she can come across as aloof and very much kind of missing the point on a lot of things socially, but like she's also a very good character with redeeming qualities. She sees the good in people, the logic in people. The basically, she is highly intelligent, highly capable. She could create pretty much anything out of scrap metal, more or less, or anything like junks and parts. Like she's literally MacGyver of She-Ra. So yeah, without her help, you know, the Horde and basic Horde Prime and the stuff, they would have conquered the whole damn planet of Etheria. So, Entrapped is another awesome character who's also autistic and on the spectrum that also, not desperately, but like, should be appreciated as an awesome autistic character that basically, everybody should literally just check out the series for yourself and, just appreciate. So, and then, okay, I was saying I was going to do 4 examples, but I'm probably only going to do 3. So, yeah, that's cartoons, comics. And last one is another example, is Symmetra from Overwatch. For those gamers out there, Symmetra is one of my favorite characters in Overwatch. Not because she's an autistic character, but she's also just a beautiful, smart, charismatic character that basically, depending on who you are, she could be one of your favorite characters too, or one of your hated characters, depending on your gameplay style. But, she's also a very highly capable character and autistic character specifically that is also a badass. I mean, she literally creates anything that comes to her mind via light and holograms. And that's amazing. And she's also a leader and the CEO of her own company. And basically, she's a little bit of a moral gray area, but, complexity is a good thing when it comes to characters, for the most part. So, with that being said, that's another. I also, again, I have to reiterate, she's very hot, more or less. So, with that being said, so yeah, that's essentially Symmetra as well, and another great autistic character that, for those who are not aware that she's autistic, well, there you go. So, yeah, that's kind of been my whole thing on my whole video on Autism Awareness Day and for Autism Awareness Month. I'm the Okinawa Kid, and this is me signing off.